Okay, here are the ingredients already measured out for the cinnamon rolls. All right, so we have 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. We have 1 cup of warm milk. Here's 1/2 cup granulated sugar. Here is 1/3 cup butter and it's softened. Here are 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 4 cups of flour. Okay, now I have my mixer here. I have all of my ingredients laid out, so I'm ready to start the directions. So number 1 says stir 2 tablespoons of the sugar into warm milk until sugar is mostly dissolved. Now notice it says 2 tablespoons of sugar. It doesn't say pour all of the sugar in there. So I'm going to take out 2 tablespoons of this sugar and I'm going to put it into the warm milk and I'm going to stir it until it's mostly dissolved. And then number 2 is sprinkle yeast on top of the warm milk sugar mixture. Okay, and then we're going to lightly stir. Remember, you just want to get most of the yeast exposed to the liquid. Okay, so here we go. Because if the yeast doesn't come in contact with the liquid, then it won't get rehydrated. Okay, and this milk is about 118 degrees. Okay, it's mostly stirred up here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is set this aside, and then we're going to wait for foam to form across the top. Okay. Now, number 3, place sugar, butter, salt, and eggs. So sugar, butter, salt, and eggs. Okay, so I'm just going to whisk these around a little bit. You don't have to, but I just think it makes it easier for them to mix in. All right, pour that right in there. Okay. And flour into a large mixing bowl. Okay, so you're putting in everything except for your yeast mixture. And you're going to mix well with the paddle attachment. All right, so we'll put this on here. And we're going to start off slowly so all this flour doesn't come flying out. So low. And so now we want to mix well. Okay, so you want everything incorporated with each other. Okay, the eggs and the butter and the milk make this a really rich dough. Okay. Maybe a little more. Don't want to go too high. It's still kind of crumbly. Okay. So, as you can see, it's all mixed well together. It's just basically crumbly. I'm going to scrape off the bottom just to make sure that we got all that butter mixed in. Yep. Okay. Now, if we look, you can see that there's a bit of foam across the top. So remember I said it doesn't have to be a really thick layer. Just as long as there is some foam, you're good. Okay, so pour the yeast mixture into the bowl, and then we're going to mix it briefly with the paddle attachment. And then we're going to put the dough hook on. Okay, just briefly. All Right now, you remember the dough hook, right? Here it is, Captain Hook. All right, so I'm going to scrape the dough off of the paddle. Don't want to miss any. Right, and take this off. You just press and turn, and then slide this one on. Okay, and let me scrape the sides a little bit. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to mix this until they're well incorporated. And you can already see that it's getting elastic. Okay, I'm going to turn up the speed a little bit. Pretty soon it'll gather into a ball around the dough hook. It'll kind of follow the hook around, which is what you want. See, it's kind of sticking to the side, but it's starting to follow the hook around. Okay, so basically this is starting the kneading process. So while this is doing this, you can, if you like, you can sprinkle some flour on the counter where you're going to knead your dough, because we're going to have to knead this just like the pizza dough. Okay, now we have kind of a ball that's following the dough hook around. So what I'm going to do is turn this off. It's still really sticky. Okay, but you can see how elastic it is. Okay, it doesn't just fall off of the hook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape it off the dough hook here. And then I'm going to move the mixer and we're going to start rolling this out. Or kneading it, actually. Okay, so I'm going to sprinkle some flour on the counter. I got about 1.5 cups. It looks like we might have been able to add a little more flour into that. Today is pretty humid. That could be probably why, but that's okay. It's going to be really sticky. But remember, the more you knead it, you're going to need a little bit of flour into it, but you want to try to knead as little as possible amount of the flour into it as you can, because you definitely don't want this dough to be dense. And if you get too much flour kneaded into it, it can become dense. So, all right. Well, you see how sticky it is. Very sticky. Get out of there. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, now I'm going to sprinkle some flour on the top, and I'm going to put some on my hands. Okay, now I'm going to start kneading. It's very soft. Okay, this is a lot of flour. I'm going to move some out of the way. I'm going to hope that the actual action of kneading will make this less sticky, because kneading will make it less sticky. You don't necessarily have to knead a lot of flour into it. If it starts sticking to your hands, you could put a little more flour on your hands. Okay, I'm going to move some of this. Okay, so see here, I'm hardly using any underneath. There we go. You see how it's much less sticky? And look how beautiful this is. It's so elastic. That's exactly what you want. Okay, so by kneading it like this, we're strengthening the gluten bonds. And this is a really, like I said, it's a really rich dough. It's a little bit sweet. And then once I'm done kneading this, I'm going to put it in a bowl and I'm going to put it in a warm place. And I think it'll take about an hour and a half to rise. And then I will show you how to form the cinnamon rolls. We're going to make the filling and then make it into cinnamon rolls. Okay, so here we go. It's pretty much ready to be put aside to rise. It's not sticky, okay? It's very satiny. All right, so I am going to put this in a bowl, and then as soon as it rises, it should double in size. Then we'll make the filling and we'll make our cinnamon rolls.